welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today I want to talk about something a little controversial, and that is I want to give you my take on ETA movements versus in-house movements. What do I think? Are they worth the money? Are in-house movements really, that important, essentially, to the value of a watch? Before we get started, today I'm wearing my Eterna Kontiki World Timer GMT. I haven't worn this in easily 6 or 7 months, and I don't know why. But I just put it on a new NATO strap, and I decided to bust it out of the watch box today. This is my travel watch now that I don't have the Rolex GMT. But I'll leave a link to my collection review up top so you can take a look at it more in depth. But I really, really love this watch, and this is a great example of a watch that's expensive at retail, but you can pick up for next to nothing, and it offers great value, essentially. And it's running the ETA 2892 chronometer grade. So ETA movements versus in-house movements. This is something that's been kind of going around the watch enthusiast circles for quite some time. And in the beginning, there was a lot of kind of hubbub about in-house movements, how big watchmakers like IWC or Ulysse Nardin, for the prices that they're charging, should really be using in-house movements. And to a certain degree, I can agree with that statement. However, there's a lot of things to consider. Now, I think, the availability of ETA movements made a lot of watchmakers pretty lazy, because before Swatch started curbing the amounts that they started to sell to their other suppliers, ETA movements were everywhere. I mean, let's see, Panerai used them, IWC used them, Breitling, Tag, Ulysse Nardin, Cartier, a ton of, of course, companies like Longines, but some pretty expensive companies were using ETA movements, and a lot of them didn't even really bother to modify them. I mean, the IWC Portuguese chronograph is a great example of a highly modified ETA movement, and that's going for about $7,000, which is pretty steep. But you've got other watches like a Ulysse Nardin Maxi Marine chronograph, which is going for about the same price, and it's not modified, apart from like a fancy schmancy rotor. So I think, when ETAs were easily bought, it made the watch industry pretty frickin' lazy. Then, rumors had it, and Swatch actually went through with it. They started cutting back the supply of ETA movements. And they did this for a business perspective. I mean, Swatch owns ETA, and they said, well, listen, if we curb back, then, some of these watch brands are going to either lose margin or have to invest money in their own movements. We're not going to make it so easy for them to make money. And yes, some of the slack was picked up by other companies such as Sellita and Soprod, who made ETA clones, which was possible because the patents had expired. But, these companies, now they're up and running, but in the beginning, they really didn't have the tooling and the infrastructure available to kind of meet the demand. And, this led to a lot of great innovation. Breitling, one of the biggest ETA movements, when Swatch made this announcement, they came out with their B01 movements. IWC now has a whole line of in-house movements. Panerai also makes in-house movements. Cartier came out with the 1904 MC movement. So this announcement that ETA was cutting off supply made companies innovate again. And for that, I'm pretty thankful. But this might change because, on a side note, Swatch did announce that ETA is going to be selling movements again, probably because the industry is not doing so well, so it's another stream of income. But just because a movement is in-house doesn't mean it's good, and that's the key thing here. People were annoyed at ETA movements because movements like the 2824 could be had in a $250 to $300 Hamilton, and the same movement was being slapped in a $3,000 Breitling. Or a 2892 could also be had in like a $1,000 Longines and was being sold in, a $5,000 watch. And yeah, I think that's a big deal. And the only thing that was really being changed was the decoration, and sometimes they were chronometer grade or modified. But a lot of times, the value just wasn't there. And from that perspective, I think, it's a good thing. Yeah, they should be in-house for that price. But what does in-house really mean? In-house is something that's designed and manufactured entirely by, the watchmaking companies themselves. But that doesn't mean they're particularly good. I mean, ETA 2824s and 2892s have been proven for decades. I mean, multiple decades. And a lot of these new movements that come out, yes, it takes 4 or 5 years of R&D and testing, but 4 or 5 years is not enough to tell if a movement's really reliable. Now, I'm not going to mention this company, but I know of a company that was releasing in-house movements, pretty expensive ones too, in the $20,000 to $30,000 range for the watch, and they discovered 4 years later that the same part kept failing in all the watches. So what did they do? Of course they didn't tell anybody. Anytime a watch came in for service, they'd change that part, and they quietly updated the movement with a new part. They didn't even change the movement number. So, to the public, nothing really changed. But, a significant portion of the movement was changed because it kept failing. And a lot of these movements, just because they're in-house, doesn't mean they're any good. I mean, some of them are good, but, you can never tell if a movement's going to fail. A good example is the movement that was used in the 42mm Panerai radiometer. That was an extremely fragile movement. And I remember because I wanted to buy that watch myself, and I went to my watchmaker, who knew Panerai very well, and I said, hey, bud, what do you think of this? He said, listen, that movement keeps coming back, so don't touch it. And stuff like that, I mean, you just can't tell until things have been out for a while. So while I applaud the new innovation and the new in-house movements making watches unique again, I think people need to be a little bit careful when criticizing ETA, because ETA do make great movements and they're very, very reliable. Yes, they're common, they're not luxurious, they could be had in a wide variety of price ranges, but just because you're getting a $20,000 watch with a fancy schmancy in-house movement doesn't mean it's better than an ETA or a Miyota or, God, I mean, some watch companies have released, excuse my language, real turds lately in terms of movements, and, people don't really find out. It's a selling point when you walk into a jewelry boutique and they say, yes, but this watch is in-house. So what? I mean, yes, I can understand, you shouldn't be charging $10,000 for another movement considering you can get it for much less. But so what if it's in-house? I mean, what do you know if it's any good? You need to do research on the forums. These movements have to have a proven track record. So far, a lot of them are great, but so far there's been also a lot of shtups that have been released, and the consumer is no wiser. So in conclusion, I think, yes, innovation is a great thing, but since ETA announced that they're cutting back their supply, which they've now gone back on, it forced watch companies to hastily design and release in-house movements. A lot of them, not most of them, but a lot of them, not any good or not any better than their ETA counterparts. So before you go around criticizing ETA movements, chances are they're better than a lot of these fancier in-house movements. Anyway, guys, what do you think? Have you had any experiences with in-house movements gone wrong? Let me know in the comment section below. And also, take a look at the description of this video for my Instagram link. I'm Federico Talks Watches on Instagram, link in the description below, and that way you can follow me to get some great watch content, even on the days when I'm not uploading. Once again, thank you so much for all the support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you found it useful, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.